spoken word with appreciation for this gift. To listen deeply means acceptance, genuine acceptance that does not demand anything in return. There is no reaching out, no going anywhere. We are calm and vigilant as the sounds and words touch us as they will. Sounds nice, no? That is how I would like to be listened to and how I would like to be able to listen. I aspire to the generosity that the poet Henry Thoreau suggested when he said, "The greatest compliment that was ever paid to me was when one asked me what I thought and attended my answer." But the thing is that most of us don't listen like that, right? I know I don't. And yeah, but why is that? No, that is also why is that, and what can we do? I think that one of the clues was in the poem that Padmatara read, that phrase that says, "What in your life is calling you?" But yeah, first let me say a bit about why don't we listen like that? What keeps us from that? Well, we tend to hear everything in relation to ourselves. When someone tells us a story, we immediately think of similar stories or more extreme stories we ourselves could tell in turn, right? Our usual way of listening is centered to a degree on ourselves, our own similar life experiences, our own similar feelings and perspectives. And when we can locate experiences, feelings, and perspectives of our own that resemble the other person's, we believe that we relate to that person. No? We believe that we understand that person. And we say things like, "Yeah, I know what you mean. I hear you. I feel for you," or "I feel your pain." Perhaps less often, "I feel your joy." We say these things imagining what we might feel in such a situation, right? And when we don't find similar experiences, feelings, and perspectives, we have the sense that we don't understand that person. We may even find the person strange, if not irrational. And in more extreme cases, we become judgmental and we think, well, how could anyone believe such a thing or act or feel in that way? I remember, several examples in my psychologist practice. No? For example, when I was starting to practice, a woman came and a tearful started to telling me about how she got divorced from this guy, but then she remarried, and she remarried the same guy. No? And for me, that experience was something that could only happen in Hollywood. No? And I probably made a face or something, because she immediately told me, "No, hey, you're being judgmental." And she never came back, obviously. And well, she was right. No, she was right. I was trying to find that experience in myself, in my own experience, and I couldn't find it. No, and so yeah, most simply stated, our usual way of listening overlooks or rejects the uniqueness of the other person. We rarely listen to what makes a story as told by another person unique, specific to that person alone. We quickly assimilate it to other stories we have heard or stories about ourselves that we could tell, overlooking the differences between the story being told and the ones with which we are familiar with. We rush to gloss over the differences. Also, another example is in my practice, in my psychoanalytic practice. I was seeing once an adolescent guy, and he came one day telling me that he had just broken up with his girlfriend. And I said, oh, you must be feeling terrible. And he looked at me and he said, no, I feel relieved. So you see, I was interpreting his story according to my own story. So from the Buddhist point of view, the reason that we get into conflict with one another, the reason that we get depressed and struggle in life is because we fundamentally misinterpret our experience. Always interpreting the raw data of our senses. So for example, if I see a flower, the flower meets my eye, then also the image of the flower meets my eye, and then my brain, my eye goes to my brain where it is processed, and the brain interprets, well, this is a flower. And it will start making all sorts of views and theories about the flower. And I may start thinking, do I like that flower? Oh yeah, I like the flower. And wondering, but where did it come from? And can I grow it in a pot on the deck? Or is this just a wildflower? And all those kinds of stories, just from the raw data, no? We call this prapancha, no? And the same with listening, no? I listen to this guy that comes into my office, and I listen to his words, but immediately imagine his pain. I interpret what is happening to him. And even when his words never hinted at anything like that, no? And so this is our usual way of listening, and it is highly narcissistic and self-centered. We evaluate how their stories reflect upon us, whether good or bad, loving or hateful. We ask ourselves, do they love us or not? So what does that mean? We try to see the image about ourselves that their story is reflecting back. And when we listen like that, we are shadowed by a nagging sense of weariness and self-doubt. And this unavoidably disconnects us from ourselves and from others. This kind of listening brings us pain and suffering, and basically makes us deaf. When I was preparing my talk, an image came to my mind, and it's this image about a Charlie Brown cartoon. I think you are all familiar, no, with this, the Peanuts, the Charlie Brown's cartoon. And do you remember Lucy, his friend, and that she had a psychiatrist booth, no? And Charlie Brown used to go to her and talk. And there was one cartoon where Lucy tells Charlie Brown, you know what your problem is, Charlie Brown? The problem with you is that you are you. Very dharmic, right? Yeah, and well, how we interpret what we are listening to will be dependent on your own mind. And how you are interpreting the sense data and how you generally interpret the world. And this is like with those ink blots, no, that psychologists use, these ink blots. You see a blot, and the blot is the same, but depending on your mind and your story and what is happening to you, you will see different things in the blot, or you will see it completely different, no? And yeah, and one of the myths, one of the most fundamental misunderstandings from the Buddhist view is that our experience is permanent. We fix it, we make it solid, we make it permanent. And it also creates a kind of story of life. Yeah, but wait, so first of all, this myth about the experience being permanent. So also, depending sometimes on how I wake up in the morning, if I wake up in a bad mood, or a good mood. No, I'll focus in a bad mood because that's usually what happens. I could think, oh yeah, this is it, this is my life. No, so I'm feeling bad, I'm in a bad mood, and this is it. So we make it solid and we make it permanent. And it also creates a kind of story of life, which is that we are going to continue in the same way, pretty much, give or take. See, we'll continue in the same way, and we are never going to die, right? That is the other story, that we're never going to die. I mean, that would be the ultimate expression of that. And I'm not talking about an idea, right? Because I know that if I ask any of you here that if you know you are going to die, probably all of you will tell me, yeah, of course, I know I'm going to die. But the truth is that we don't act that way, right? We basically act as if we're going to stay the same always, and that we're never going to die, right? And basically, that is part of why we don't want to listen. And again, I'm not talking about an idea. But maybe we don't want to listen to that aspect, that we are going to die, that things change. See, we don't, because when we listen closely, when we listen deeply, we are very present and aware of the moment, aware of impermanence, and it is painful. And and it's fair enough, no? If you had a really fierce loss, and most of us have had a loss, the loss of someone who's close to you, then we human beings have every right to say, listen, life, if this is how you play the game, I'm not going to play the game. I'm not playing by your rules. I'm going to manufacture my own little game, and I'm not going to come out of it. I'm going to make my own little bubble, and I'm going to draw up the rules. I want to create insulation. I want to create distance. I won't listen. And many human beings do that for the rest of their lives. Others for a short period of time, but all of us are struggling to be here. Well, when Charlie Brown asked Lucy, well, Lucy, what can I do? She said, I don't know. I'm here to point out the problem, but not to give any answers. But fortunately, Buddha had answers. So if we want a more satisfying existence, the ego needs our help. We have to teach it to loosen its grip, to let go of craving and aversion. So if our attempts to understand another being invariably lead us to reduce what another person is saying to what we think we already know, one of the first steps we must take is to stop trying to understand so quickly. Because it is not by showing the other person that we understand what he is saying that we build a connection with him, but rather by listening to that person in a way that she has never been listened to before. So the more we discipline our attention to be present with our immediate, non-interpretive experience, the more clearly we see that all our thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions arise in an endless and never resolvable display, ever changing. So bringing our experience into alignment with this reality gives rise to clarity, relaxation, and a more skillful engagement with our lives. And as an exercise, you can experiment, as an exercise for listening, you can experiment with relating to all your experience just as you relate to music. When listening to music, you may participate fully in each note without hanging on to notes you like or adding commentaries to notes you don't like. And you cooperate with the flow of the experience, right? So in a similar way, you could choose to listen to another being with an attitude of non-intervention. And this doesn't mean we have to have a passive attitude, just the contrary. Sometimes listening with kindness involves a healthy, aggressive energy. It means engaging from the basic energy of separateness while keeping one's heart open. It means having more presence. It means being more embodied. So this is not much different from what we do when we start a meditation. We start by being present before mind and before everything around us with an intention. We listen to our experience and we simply wait, not in a detached way, but in a non-attached way. And here lies the secret of deeply listening, of radical listening, of extreme listening, and of course of the meditation experience, acceptance. This is the secret, acceptance, genuine acceptance that does not demand anything in return. Full acceptance of the being that is in front of you, warts and wrinkles and wounds and injuries and all. And what does this acceptance, what does this kind of acceptance bring me? Well, it pushes back a fundamental fear that most of us share. It pushes back the fear of death. Even if it's just for a while, if it's just for the Sangha night hour, no, when we're listening to each other, like a flashlight's beam of life, it calms the person who's walking through darkness, even without chasing the darkness away entirely. See, acceptance allows us to rest, allows us time and space within which to sense ourselves fully, sober up, look inward and around us, organize the matter of our beings, tune our instruments, and play the right note. Such acceptance is the lifeblood of listening, the active ingredient. Such beautiful listening. So life is continually asking us to listen deeply, to notice change and impermanence. And we continually run away from that listening, right? Because we don't want to, it's very hard, and particularly in these times when we're facing so much change and pain and all that, no? It is not easy. So we continually run away from that listening. But if we are here in this Buddhist center, it is because we don't want to keep running away. Because in here we're all connected. And the Buddha, in his last words, he said, all things are impermanent. With mindfulness, strive on. And it is interesting that he talks about mindfulness in his last words, when he is dying. It is interesting because one of the meanings for mindfulness is recollection. Recollection, what is your purpose in life? What is important? And yeah, right now what's important is this what is happening right now. We're here listening. We're going to go into groups and we will listen to each other. So, and someone once asked Freud what he considered the most important force for healing in the psychotherapeutic relationship. And Freud said, just showing up for the appointment. That's the fundamental thing. And yeah, no, I agree. And we have an appointment with life. No? So will we show up? Will we listen? Thank you. That's my talk.